Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Cultured Nerd Podcast. And this week, we're kind of gearing toward our finale for this season, or rather just this year, I guess as you want to call it. But we had some stuff happen. Rebel Moon got critically destroyed, and fans don't care. And honestly, they shouldn't, because the movie isn't for the critics, it's for the fans. And then lastly, the big bombshell from yesterday, Jonathan Majors was found guilty. And within an hour, the verdict being made loose, he was cut off by Marvel. And then they seemingly indicated that their entire plans for this phase are up in smoke. So we have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about Rebel Moon. We're going to talk about Marvel. We're going to talk about DC even. There's some DC stuff we want to talk about. But with it all, sit tight and let's begin. And he walks away.
I had to blow my nose. I was doing it as fast as I could. I ran away as fast as I could.
Yes, you did. And
okay. So I think that both of these things, while not directly related to each other, I want to throw something by you.
Okay.
I think 2023 is the worst year of produced movies. I think across the board, from multiple companies that me and you talk about, I think they're all stinkers. I wonder if we're in the umbrella of stinkdom, that we've been doing movies for like 100 years, from one pandemic, right, from 1918 all the way to the next pandemic. Everyone's burned out, and we're getting these lackluster films. And the films that people are excited for are these passion projects based around one director's vision. That this movie by committee, this Disney model, if you will, is not going to work anymore.
I think that's definitely part of it. I mean, you kind of talked about, this is the year, right? 2023 was the year that we knew that the filmmaking period of COVID was finally going to catch up with everybody. So yes, we had a lot of movies, a lot of gaps, a lot of just here it is. But I think the bigger part about it all was also the fact that we had the strikes earlier this year. And with it, you had pretty much no reshoots, no post-production stuff. Everything just halted. So whatever was done was done. And then you have just kind of this mixture of the kind of the perfect storm with everything else. I mean, people will try to argue, oh, we're not even in a recession. It's not official yet. But the numbers for unemployment, the numbers for inflation, the numbers for the housing market, everything is worse than the actual Great Depression was. So people don't care about movies right now because everything sucks.
I feel that so hard. Like, even when I see things where it's like, I read an article that was talking about how jobs numbers were good today, and it was like, that's fine. Right. I know, right? That's fine. But the grocery store is still super expensive. And
yeah, like I was actually trying to tell somebody the other day, they're like, how's your mortgage? I'm like, the mortgage is fine. They're like, what's your interest rate? Doesn't matter. What's really bugging you? Spending about $600 a month on groceries. That's what's bothering me. Because in what I used to spend, being like 200 tops, we have inflation and shrinkflation. So like shit's getting more expensive and portion sizes are getting a lot smaller. So people are just kind of like, do I even want Oreos anymore? Because it's less Oreos than I got before.
Oh, we don't buy that package. Oh, Oreos are no longer. I feel like we have a handful of staples from Trader Joe's, but we were talking to the Trader Joe's man, and he was like, oh, we do year-long contracts, so shrinkflation will. I'm wondering what my favorite Trader Joe items will look like in January of 2024 when their contracts all come up.
No, they're going to be terrible.
I think you're right. And I also think we need to re-talk what is the value of a movie to somebody? Because, like, I feel like in the model you just presented to me, movies was the easiest thing to cut out. For example, I just saw the Barbie movie. It is streaming.
Because it's on HBO.
It's on Max. Enjoyed the movie. Thought it was very funny. Thought it was just a good comedy. Like just a good, funny A+ comedy, which I couldn't remember the last time I saw a comedy movie. Like I'm trying to think, like, did I think about The Hangover the first time I saw it? Like, I'm trying to think what was the last comedy movie I saw that I really enjoyed. And I can see how a theater filled with people laughed a mile a minute with this movie, and then it makes you cry in the third act. But it was fine. It was a good comedy movie that happened to be this Universal IP. I spent no money on this movie. I have this movie means nothing to me. I'm not going to buy Barbie figures now. I'm not going to it didn't change any of my spending habits. I now understand the references behind it, but like, I didn't have to add anything for the value of that movie. And then everything else, it's like, if I don't support it, they're not going to make it anymore. Okay, well, don't make Shazam anymore because I don't want to see that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of a weird time that we have with films because I mean, and DC kind of got the bum rap on this, right? I mean, everyone who was trying to like, if you want to see more Shazam, go see it. If you want to see more, all this stuff, but the reality was those were part of the windfall of projects that existed from the previous regime. So even if, I mean, unless these movies made $1 billion, the new regime would not even thought twice. The only thing that kept them from just doing the Batgirl route was literally that we can probably make more than $90 million off of this. And they did. All of them did. So it worked out. I mean, it was kind of just a net profit for everyone because it was literally just, we're getting what we're getting. It doesn't matter if we sink any more money into it because we're getting what we're getting. But now you have kind of this interesting dynamic going on social media, right? So Rebel Moon had its big premieres, but what was interesting about these premieres is what we talked about a few weeks ago when I said that what they're likely going to do is just do fan things. That's exactly what they did. These premieres that they kind of did across the world, like these 5 premieres, influencers and fans were invited, and press somehow got there by posing as fans and whatnot, but none of them had formal invites to get into these events because they were fan events. It was, if you remember the press, the only way you got into these events was by being faster than the fans at claiming a free ticket that was destined for the fans, right? So because of that, you had kind of this windfall of negative reviews come out. And mind you, I think on Rotten Tomatoes right now, I think the movie's still sitting in like the low 20s, but they all kind of say the same thing. It is Snyder on steroids. I had to sneeze too. They complained about the pacing, the story, the nonsensical action is what they said.
Just so everybody knows, this is half a movie. I promise you that when I watch this movie, I'm going to tell Taylor I didn't like it. It feels like an incomplete story. It is an incomplete story. This is half of an essay. So like everything you're telling me, it's like, no, duh. Have you not seen any of the other Zack Snyder movies? I mean, yeah.
And that's the funny thing about it, right? I mean, the movie itself is not only is it half of a movie, it's also the theatrical cut. So it's the watered down version of what Zack wanted to do. So it's like maybe a quarter of the real vision, right? So when I saw the reviews, I was like, oh, well, it makes sense. They didn't want to sink any more money into doing press junkets and doing all this stuff because there was no point in it. But they're going to sink the money into the influencers, or sink the money into the word of mouth. They're going to do social media campaigns, everything like that. And that is exactly what I was expecting. Another funny thing on that same note was Aquaman comes out later this week, and did the exact same thing.
Does it come out later this week? Have you seen any trailers?
No, 0 press junket, 0 anything, but the movie comes out like on Friday. So with that, you can kind of see that maybe there was some negativity from the studios, or it could be whatever you want to do. But I think the reality is that even the studios are hurting because the writer strikes, the actor strikes, they just destroyed so much of capital with a lot of these places. And with that, I mean, back to the Rebel Moon side of things, Rebel Moon is going to come out on Thursday, right? Like 7 p.m. And I know for a fact that everyone on the Twitter sphere and everyone on Instagram and everyone in between, everyone on social media is basically saying the same thing. To hell with the critics. They never mattered, which is true. And I'm going to see it anyways. And I'm probably going to love it because everything they complained about, I like that about his movies. So I'm going to see it the same way. I'll probably have the same criticisms. I'll try to take an objective approach to it because, like, yes, it's half of a movie, and the half that we're getting is also the watered down version.
How much do you think we're getting when we get the director's cut of part one? How much longer do you think it is? Like, if you compare other of his projects to the director's cut, how much do you think gets shaved off?
Probably an hour.
Okay.
Like anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour minimum is what was cut off of this first half.
It blows my mind that you know the kind of movies that Snack Snyder makes.
Snyder.
Thank you. Well, because I was thinking about all the treats I'm going to be eating on Christmas while I'm watching this movie. Why not do the long version? Like I know with YouTube analytics, it matters how long you watch for. Like, why wouldn't Netflix want a super long movie? Like, I pause a movie 4 times anyway for my wife's tiny bird bladder to go pee. Like, what does it matter if we watch this movie in 4 sittings or 3 sittings? Like, why not just give us the good version of it?
I think back to high school when we would hang out and all watch movies, and even then she had a tiny bird bladder.
She had a tiny bladder.
We couldn't handle watching movies with her because it was always like, I gotta pause, or like, that's how it was. That's how it is. It's been for 20 years.
If I need to see an uninterrupted movie, I go to the theaters, which I usually do by myself.
But anyways, I mean, Lisa's my wife. She will fall asleep on anything, even if it's like John Wick. She'll fall asleep 10 minutes in. She's just the worst when it comes.
See, I fell asleep in Ong Bak 2, and that was the last time I brought her to. And I brought her to one of those movies. I was like, I'm never taking you to see another one of these movies.
It's like, I'm losing money at this point. That's $15 I will never get back.
Yeah, we snuck in Chipotle and everything. It was at the Krikorian.
Oh, I remember the Krikorian. Now people are going to pinpoint where we grew up because of that, because the Krikorian is not like it.
That's a good look. I mean, I think it's changed names.
Probably has, actually, but you can still probably Google what it was.
It's next to the Vietnam Memorial now, Taylor. I went there.
Vietnam Memorial?
It's a little area. It's got a pond and a statue. It was wonderfully depressing, but I enjoyed. It was a nice thing. It was a nice thing to think about.
I enjoyed the effort of making me sad.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, with all of that, I mean, we understand that about Rotten Tomatoes being Rotten Tomatoes and how pretty much nobody understands how Rotten Tomatoes works. I mean, everyone says, oh, the movie got a C grade because that's 70%. That's not what it means. It means 70% of the critics said they would recommend it. It's a recommendation score, not a grade, but people all think it's a grade, which is the problem. But on that same note, I think what it's coming down to is that a lot of people now are kind of pushing back on the idea that critics should be allowed advanced reviews. Because I've always said for myself, like, I don't think they should be getting any advanced reviews. And I think advanced reviews also can hurt movies big time. If the movie is a good movie and advanced reviews are all glowing, then you go in with an unrealistic expectation.
Sure.
So I think in the age of social media, in the age of the internet, advanced reviews should be kind of done away with. I think it should just be everyone is back on that even slate. You see the movie when you see the movie. And if you want the honest critic review, the Sunday paper following the review, following the premiere is where you get it. So
would you extend the ban on reviewing a movie till one day after? If a movie releases on a Friday, you can write the review on Saturday?
On Sunday.
On Sunday.
Sunday Times is where you should get your review. Essentially, like, if you want to see what the critics say, you got to wait till Sunday. And that's what it should be. As it should be with kind of everything. I mean, if that's where the written review should go, but the written reviews never go anywhere because people are in social media. But I honestly think that critics
it's kind of like video games, right? Don't video game like, people review it, but like, you can't, like, you can show, like, with bad games, you can show it off, like, their preview stuff, but like, I don't know. I feel like it takes a couple days for people to be like, no, this is bad. I mean, I guess there was that one video game that just failed and the studio went belly up, right? The fake Last of Us game.
Yeah, and it got like a 1 out of 10 on every review site, and they all basically said, I lost money and time trying this thing. Yeah.
But I don't know. Video games are also a different experience as well, because like if that's based on that, I played Cyberpunk on launch day and it was unplayable. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like that
And then
studio
now,
didn't go under.
and now, well, it's because they survived on their proceeds from the Witcher games, so they knew what they were doing. Good for them. But they also have done one of the greatest turnarounds of any game in like history. I think, like it was to the point where they delisted multiple versions of the game. They had people getting refunds, and now following all the new updates, all the new quality of life changes, and the final DLC stuff, it's like it feels like, yes, it is the same game, but it's also not even close to being what the same game is. They've turned this game around in the most extravagantly, impossibly amazing way they could have done, and it's such a fascinating thing to see.
But look how much more time they needed. You know what I mean? They needed 2 more years, and who knows what the ramp up to launch the first time did in burning out that team for giving us a subpar. I mean, yeah, I think I got a refund for it. I don't even think I have it on my PS4 anymore because they paid for it.
Yeah. But it's such an interesting world we live in, because now video games are getting more critical praise than they are with movies, because people are understanding the storytelling aspects behind having 20, 30, 40 plus hours of story written by one person instead of like multiple show writers, multiple voices, all this stuff. Like you have one conceived idea and that's it. But
let's take this conversation because you mentioned Aquaman 3, which
is not happening.
I feel like it's in a kind of the same stage that the actor who is now canceled, he's officially fired by Marvel. I wanted to talk about, and I just wrote down tainted movies in my notes. I wrote tainted movies.
All right, just for everyone who's listening, Michael said Aquaman 3, but we're actually now talking about Kang the Conqueror and Jonathan Majors.
Correct, but I bring up Aquaman 3 because of all
Aquaman 3 is not a thing. It's Aquaman 2.
Thank you. Okay, see, I'm confused because thank you.
I've seen Aquaman a lot lately, but this is
I know.
The second
I apologize. But I'm thinking about all of the turmoil Aquaman 2 had. Even before talking about superhero fatigue and the economy, just the Amber Heard stuff that put such a weird taint onto all of this that, like, on top of everything else, that's going to be there.
Yeah.
So now I'm looking at these. His name is Jeffrey Majors.
Jonathan Majors.
I'm looking at what's going on with him. He is officially fired. He was one of the better parts of Loki. There was lots of good parts of Loki. He is one of the best parts of that show.
Yeah, both seasons. I mean, as soon as he showed up at the end of the first season, you were like, oh shit, this show got interesting.
But now there's a weird taint over all of it because, like, that's him, but he also beats his girlfriend. And I kind of think about it like the last Kevin Spacey movie, that was like his big movie, was Baby Driver. I love Baby Driver. I always want to watch it. I want to show it to people. It's like a weird musical dance action movie, but there's a weird taint on it because of Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
So do you think this taint touches, did you think this touches Ant-Man, all of these movies in this 4, there's like a weird, like, oopsies.
So it's a very interesting thing because, for people who just read the headlines, yes, Jonathan Majors was convicted. He was marked guilty, and these were the accusations, so he's a bad guy, right? That's what everyone is seeing from the headlines. For those who actually watched the videos, watched all the depositions, actually followed the case, it seemed like a lot of it was circumstantial, and he was found guilty on half of the charges, but not the other half. So, like, he's not as guilty as you could argue. You could also argue that Robert Downey Jr. and his cocaine hooker weekend was far more damning than this stuff. But we now are in the age of cancel culture, and people don't give a shit. So, regardless,
I also think Kevin Feige is kind of like, okay, when they call me into the Disney meeting and they go, why is this last batch of movies suck? He could be like, listen, we had to cancel this guy. He was all of our plans. We got to rethink everything. I fired everyone. We're like, I don't know. This kind of also feels like a weird, like, letting out of the steam of, like, what was supposed to be this movie, which is now in the ashes, right? We're going to get something from ground zero.
So what's interesting, so following the announcement that he was let go, within like 20 minutes of that announcement, the Hollywood Reporter had also revealed that Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, was now being rebranded simply as Avengers 5, and the new subtitle's not revealed yet. Which we already know from a few weeks ago, the Loki writer is now writing this movie again from the ground up, and now it's lost that side of the whole plot. Like, it's no longer about Kang.
Which multiple movies and television shows, I know not everyone's been watching the TV shows. Like, half of the TV shows were setting up towards Kang stuff. The other half of it is magic, and I think we're going to be getting a magic Avengers movie.
So that's what it sounds like, honestly. So what we're seeing now is kind of like the writing on the wall, and a lot of people have quickly realized that at the end of Loki season 2, it did seemingly wrap up Kang's story. You could tell from the reshoots and the writing changes that not only by Loki doing what he did and changing the events and becoming the new Kang, essentially, and then the TVA now being repurposed to hunt down the Kang variants, you could kind of wrap up that story as it is. You can basically say that.
Right. The world-ending event is over, so we don't have to deal with that anymore. We can have a new problem spout up, which was kind of Scarlet Witch, right? Like, where did Doctor Strange go?
Yeah, so I mean, with all of that, there's been a lot of rumors. There was one rumor that happened yesterday, and then an opposite conflicting rumor, which you can take it for what you want. First rumor that Jonathan Majors had a clause in his contract to prevent other versions of Kang to appear at the same time. It was like a no recasting clause, which is why he had to play all the variants, because it was part of his clause. Like, if there is any variants of Kang, I play him. So because of that, there's a lot of people saying that because of this supposed clause, we can't recast because the contract is there.
Bullshit. You beat up your girlfriend, you can get canceled. They'll just figure out a way around it.
And then there's the other opposing one saying that not only are they going to recast him, but they're going to recast him into a minimal role, and he's going to be immediately replaced by a bigger villain, aka Doctor Doom, which is going to use the mixture of Kang's technology and the magic to be Doctor Doom, which is kind of what a lot of people already thought from Deadline and the Hollywood Reporter and all those trades talking about this months ago.
But you're telling me they're going to introduce him. You're going to do an Avengers movie with Doctor Doom and not have the Fantastic Four there?
No, they are. I mean, the Fantastic Four movie now has become the most important property of Marvel, and they have to not only get this project right, but instead of focusing on Galactus and Silver Surfer, they also have to introduce Doctor Doom, and then from there, you have to include Doctor Doom in everything going forward. But the other part is that there was supposed to also be the other big bad part of Secret Wars was supposed to be the Beyonder. And originally the leaks were saying that the Beyonder was supposed to be the Kang Prime variant. Like, all the Kangs were nothing compared to the Beyonder, which was going to be like the He Who Remains on evil steroids. But now they're saying that the Beyonder is going to be recast, and he will say that he was once a Kang variant, and now he's not, and so on and so forth. And they can recast from there.
Like, all of the justifying in world doesn't matter. Like, whatever you want to call it, it just feels like all of these failed plot lines, these young Avengers that never turned anything, whatever Daredevil was supposed to be. Like, is Daredevil going to be in this new universe? I don't think he's going to be, but like, maybe
we'll see what happens.
he is.
I mean, they have so much stuff that they're doing that it almost makes no sense with all the different pieces they're trying to simultaneously juggle. But I would not be in the slightest surprised if within the next week and a half or 2 weeks, Marvel announces that they're going to delay the next 2 Avengers films. And with the delays, they're going to also add 5 movies in between and just do a bunch of stuff to kind of like pick up the pieces of what they just lost.
So let's say, Taylor, we whatever they've shown us, let's say all of that's wrong now, okay? So one of these 5 movies is the FF4 movie, Fantastic Four, whatever, right? And you're right. It can't be Galactus. It's got to be another something here. Okay. What are the other 4 movies that get us to this place with Doctor Doom?
Well, that's the hardest part, right? I mean, you have so many plot lines that Marvel has left unanswered so far. I mean, at the end of the Marvels, you had the Young Avengers tease, and then you had the X-Men tease, right? So we know the X-Men are going to come out in Secret Wars, and the Young Avengers are supposed to be a big factor in the Kang Dynasty. But with all of that, what's also happening with the Black Panther stuff? They did set up some more Black Panther stuff with another mutant, and then you have all the magic stuff from Moon Knight, which is supposed to still be followed up on with another season. You have all the Scarlet Witch stuff.
It's crazy stuff. When you say it like this, I don't even know what you're supposed to hang your hat on. Like, okay, so it's FF4. It's gonna be X-Men because they don't have it's the last of the name recognition, and they're gonna get a pop the first time we see a Disney X-Men. So X-Men's in there somewhere. Okay, you need 3 more. Is Blade X Black Knight a movie? Like, do we get Moon Knight? Do we just like throw all of them into a movie?
They should, honestly. I mean, what you should have with a Blade movie is...
I'm just going to write down dark movie. The dark movie.
No, Blade / Midnight Suns / Demons and Magic. And that's where you can put all of the weird characters that don't really have a place yet, but they do kind of fit in that little pocket.
Taylor, I'm going to go so far as to say I think Shang-Chi should be on that team.
I think he should.
I think in the second act of that movie, they go to China and he's like, this is too close to the place I protect. If you're doing something, I need to go there. And they're like, okay. And then he's now on the team because what the fuck do you do with that guy? Like that movie feels so disconnected to everything else.
You know, the sad reality is when I saw Shang-Chi, I know that you didn't care for it as much. I loved it to pieces. I loved Shang-Chi, and my issue with Shang-Chi was not the movie at all. It was literally every Marvel callback that kept coming up in the movie.
Sure.
Because I was like, I love this movie. I love this movie. Oh, wait, it's a Marvel movie. Oh, I love this movie. Oh, here's another Marvel reference. And it's like every Marvel reference took me out of the experience that I was having because it felt fresh. It felt new. It felt weird as hell.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. And then they threw a Marvel reference in, and I'm like, oh, right. Somehow this is going to fit into... And then I started thinking, and I'm like, how is it going to fit? And now I'm getting mad. And it was stuff like that. It was like, it felt like this wonderful distraction until they kept reminding people that it was part of Marvel. And with every reminder, I get more frustrated because it didn't make any goddamn sense.
So we now have like the family movie. We have the X-Men movie, which I'm going to be calling action movie. We have this dark movie. Okay, you ready for my pitch?
Sure.
I think they should do 3 men and a baby, but have it be Thor, Hulk, and whichever other Ant-Man all have to raise that tiny Thor daughter of his. And we see a bunch of, because there has to be a silly movie, right? Like there's been a Marvel comedy movie now for at least 4 years every year.
I mean, but to slowly roll there a bit, do they have to? I mean, can we just say that Marvel should learn from this and then take a beat and say maybe fans don't want the comedy. Maybe they just want us to take shit seriously again for this.
Maybe
for our reboot.
Maybe you're right because we called that last movie the dark movie. Maybe we just need the robot suits movie and figure out.
We have that. That's what Armor Wars is, and it's still happening.
And that's a TV show or a movie?
It's a movie. It's got Rhodey as like the main character, and then Ironheart's also supposed to be in it. And apparently, all the shit from Sharon Carter, the once Captain America girlfriend who's now a bad guy, is gonna sell weapons to the bad guys.
Oh yeah, remember that storyline?
There's like a whole bunch of plot lines that we all forgot about because of how convoluted Marvel got. That is all going to come to fruition with this.
Isn't there a bad guy team being formed right now? Aren't all the bad guys?
That movie's being filmed. I think in March, April. They're going to start filming it.
So is that part of the 5 then? Is the Thunderbolts, which is kind of tangentially related to Fantastic Four?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, honestly, it makes no sense. I mean, in that movie, you're going to have Harrison Ford, aka Thunderbolt Ross, the recast, aka now he's the president, aka now he's also the villain because he's the Red Hulk. So it's going to be a lot of messy politics. And then you've got a Avengers team made up of entirely Captain Americas. So that's going to be interesting. I mean, just a bunch of different variations of Captain America all in a team. There's no diversity there. It's just Captain Americas.
And then my other question for you is, where does Spider-Man fit into all of this? Does Sony want... I know he'll probably be in that Secret War, which is Avengers 6, not 5, but... Okay, 6. Great. That's 3 years away at this point. So what is happening with Spider-Man in all of this mix?
Apparently, Tom Holland is wanting to take a beat and basically he doesn't want to jump back into a new contract with Marvel, and unless he's really happy with whatever they do. So, which is fine. I think that he should be. Sorry, I just got yes.
Taylor does want pizza for dinner, and he said yes to the guy.
No, it was who's picking up the kid, and is he off at his practice at 5? And I said yes. He's off the practice at 5.
Yeah,
it's not me.
I am on the internet right now. I cannot help you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But it's there's a lot going on, I guess, with the Spider-Man stuff. They want to do another trilogy, but with that trilogy, Spider-Man is now younger. He's also forgotten by the entire MCU, which means he can fit in anywhere he wants. And I think the best places to put him in is more with those street level characters. Have him go against Kingpin, have him fight with Daredevil, have some of the Defenders be on his radar. You can also make tons of references to Fantastic Four because he's part of that same neighborhood. You can do a lot with an unknown Spider-Man now.
And you think you build up to the Venom symbiote, which has been teased now in Spider-Man and in MCU?
There was, speaking of, there was a rumor about Venom 3, which is being filmed as we speak. And this new rumor has indicated that not only is a Spider-Man appearing in this film, but it's going to be Andrew Garfield. And with that, you then solidify which universe is the universe where all these Spider-Man spin-offs come from. And then you have the Madam Web stuff, which is going to introduce the Spider-Verse in the live-action side.
Yeah,
and then the Spider-Verse cartoon side is going to converge with that, and then you can lead it all into Secret Wars. Because that's apparently what's supposed to be happening.
That Madam Web movie looks crazy. That trailer where they're just like, oh, you like one Spider Lady? Here's lots of them. It's like, okay.
I watched the trailer, and I was like, okay, let them cook. Let's see what happens. Because not only did we see 3 Spider-Women, but they were comic accurate suits, which Marvel has never done. I mean, it's one of those when you want a comic accurate suit in the MCU, you have to wait to the 3rd or 4th appearance before they start realizing that maybe the fans want this. I mean, the closest thing we ever got to comic accuracy was probably the first Iron Man. Then everyone else since then has never been comic accurate, except for Captain America's USO tour. Hokey.
I mean, technically the Hulk, isn't the Hulk accurate? He's just big and green. Isn't he comic book accurate?
I could argue that Ed Norton's Hulk was more comic book accurate than the MCU Hulk, because the designs, the sizing, all of the things about him were not accurate to the comics. Especially Smart Hulk drives me crazy.
Yeah, we don't see. I feel like that the Norton Hulk did all of the Hulk slaps his hands or rips did his Hulk powers. I feel like we usually just see him be smart now. For a while they turned everyone into Tony Stark, and they even did it to the Hulk.
Yep. And that was one of my issues with Avengers Endgame, when every Avenger suit was now nanotech, and it was all everyone can be Iron Man if they want, but no one knows how to be, apparently. But it makes no sense, because if you have a nanotech suit, why are you making your suit go back to your clothes? Just walk around in fucking armor and be protected.
Right.
I was watching it, I'm like, what? It's all nanotech. Why, for a second, would Hawkeye go back to just wearing his Hawkeye outfit? Why would he not be like, I'm wearing armor and I'm deadly? What? Logic didn't make any sense in some of these plot points.
Because James Gunn left Guardians in such a good place, do you think they want to do anything with that new team? With the team at the end of that movie? Because that's a very approachable... You can literally do anything because you took it away from the guy who brought it there.
Yeah, so apparently James Gunn on an interview this past week had said that he would really hope that Marvel continues the Guardians from that new team he established. And then at the end of the third movie, they did say that Star-Lord would be returning. So you know that at least James Gunn wants them to continue his team. And with that, they're also planning to bring Star-Lord back somewhere. So Secret Wars probably.
Yeah. Yeah, we get one of everyone from every team. We
Yeah.
also probably might, what's crazy is, remember the Eternals? We might get one of those fellas from put on this whatever ragtag team is.
Yeah. Whenever they decide to revisit that property. We'll see. But
I mean,
we're
with
just
Kang,
at this weird point
with him being fired, is everything off the shelf now? I mean, do they really have to rethink that much?
You would think that yes, because it's like, if say for instance you lose Thanos, and how much of the retooling did you have to do to set up for Thanos? But then if you also look back to how Marvel has historically dropped the ball at how they introduced their main big bads. Phase 1, who was the villain of Phase 1?
No,
It was
Loki. He just showed up though.
Yeah, but that was the thing. Is that so in Phase 1, you had the primary storyline that didn't make any sense until you saw Thor, and then you saw Avengers, and you're like, oh, okay, so they gave us the villain at 10 o'clock, and now it's 11. Here's the villain, right? And then with Phase 2, was there a villain?
They just showed us, right? We fought Ultron, and that just kind of set up the world, and then we went on a bunch of adventures.
Yeah, and then Phase 3 led into Thanos, and then Thanos' appearances / the Infinity Stone appearances were in 3-4 movies, tops. And Thanos was only seen one time, like for 2 seconds at the end of the first Avengers, and maybe 5 minutes worth of screen time, 10 minutes worth of screen time in Guardians of the Galaxy 1. And then you had the most lackluster Thor movie of the franchise, which somehow turned an Infinity Stone into liquid, but then turned it back into a stone. And then...
Is that what happens in that movie? I just remember them being in England on black sand. There was a lot of black sand in that movie.
Yeah. There was a lot of weirdness in that movie. Speaking of, here's my squirrel for the day. One of the coolest things that I saw was an early concept art design for the Green Goblin for No Way Home. And before he shows up in the final battle, apparently he was supposed to raid a weapons depot, which is how he came back with all of his weapons and shit, right? So they kind of kept that going. But the initial idea was that he was going to raid a damage control building and going to take a bunch of tech and weapons. And one of the things he was going to take was one of the Dark Elf masks from Thor. And he was going to use that as part of his Goblin mask. And it actually looked like comic book Goblin. And I was like, why did they do that? It would be such a cool throwback, but I would have loved it. You still get Willem Dafoe's second half of his face, but you get the ears and the face. Like, I was like, I want that. So it was a really cool design, but you can tell that Marvel at one point was thinking about, let's deep cut this even more than we are, and it didn't happen.
No, they went safe. They did the Goblin from the movie, which was fine.
No, but that was the thing. It was supposed to be Willem Dafoe's Goblin, and he was going to just get some MCU tech, and he was going to be like, the MCU version of the Green Goblin was going to be Willem Dafoe plus a bunch of random villain shit from all the other movies, which would have been cool. I would have liked it.
It would have been very cool.
But it's such a weird place with Marvel right now, because Jonathan Majors, it seems like it's going to be a huge blow, but I can also argue that it may not be a big enough blow, because Marvel has never been solid enough in their storytelling to where their villain can destroy an entire phase. Because most of their phases is like, it's like an anime with like season 1 of this show, you get the villain every 4 episodes, but the other 3 are filler. And that's what it felt like Marvel for a long time now, that they've become the filler show, and whether or not they get to that point where they want to tell us the story of the villain. I mean, at this point, what have we actually seen Kang in? Loki and Ant-Man.
Yeah, basically.
So without that, I mean, you can easily retool And you can argue that, okay, Loki season 1 created the variants. Then comes Ant-Man, where you see one of the variants fighting everybody in the quantum realm. And then you see Loki season 2 stop the Kang issue. And then now we're just going to move forward with another issue. So they can easily pivot and course correct how they want. And I don't think the general audiences would know a damn thing.
See, I also think they're not going to know anything. I think a general audience won't notice it because it hasn't been big enough. But I think if that's the case, then I think they do need to really build up to a villain. I think they need to bring the audience in, and let them know where this is going so that they can go along for that journey. Because if you just introduce Fantastic Four as a shot in the dark, it's just another huge group. And they are kind of a big group in that, there's 4 members we need to spend time with.
And not only that, the Fantastic Four, one of my biggest gripes with how Marvel did its MCU was that, yes, with no fault of their own, they did start without having access to Spider-Man, the X-Men, or the Fantastic Four. And that's the reality. But every time they got one of these, what they ended up doing was such a silly idea of, what if we don't at all, for a second, leave the realm of possibility that these people could also simultaneously exist? They painted themselves into a corner, so now they have to basically knock down the wall every time they add a new set of heroes. Instead of just acknowledging there could have been something like that, or making a slight reference to the fact that something like this could exist, that they can later pick up and then say, yes, that was the reference to the Fantastic Four, they said flat out, there's no such thing as magic. There's no such thing as the afterlife. Thor is a bunch of aliens, and they use magic, and they're just immortal. And now they're retooling it, saying, oh, wait, no, magic is real, but Thor is also not magic. Gods are real, but Thor is also not one of those. Like, they're kind of like, they painted themselves into a corner, and now when they're introducing the comic lore that was needed for these other characters, they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot, because now people are like, but you led me to convince for 10 years that none of this existed.
I just also think they have a tone problem.
Yeah.
Like, everything you just described to me, like, where does Falcon and Winter Soldier, who fight tangible, they fight a tank, they fight a mission, where do they fit into all of this?
What he said in that show, in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, is like, which is it of the big 3? Is it, he said, wizards, robots, or aliens? Who do they fight in that mix, right? I mean, maybe the robots? Is that who they fight? Well, no way, that's the Iron Man side. Do they fight the wizards? No, that's Doctor Strange and all the other weird people. So who is it? The aliens? No, these are they kind of painted themselves into a corner again with having a bunch of these street level characters that don't fit into the world that they've been making.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's why that's why Avengers is so fun, to see the juxtaposition of, here's Captain America having to literally fight a space god and finding out, like, oh, I'm not, you know what I mean? It took everything to happen to take care of that. So I don't know what we do. I mean, maybe we break them all up and we send them on secret missions. I don't know.
Well, and that's always the argument, because I said one of the weakest parts of the first Avengers movie was when you're watching the team fight and you just see, like, pew-pewing. Like, Hawkeye was doing more than what Black Widow was doing. Like, right? Black Widow seemed like, how many bullets does she have? Because
where does she keep them?
Yeah.
Why doesn't she have a backpack?
She's wearing a skin-tight Panther suit, and she has 0 mags on her belt. And yet she has 2 pistols with unlimited bullets.
And I would even be fine if they were like, oh, here's the special Iron Man gun. That's fine. Just set it up within the world.
Like, give us something ridiculous. Like, there was this one movie that we saw when we were younger about this boat, and there was this monster on the boat. Do you remember this one? It was like the boat was starting to flood or whatever, and there was all these guys like trying to like escape. I don't remember what it was called. It had Pam K. Jackson in it. But there was this.
Deep Blue Sea.
No, it wasn't Deep Blue Sea.
With sharks.
Way before Deep Blue Sea. No,
there was sharks.
Like, no, the monster was literally like the Kraken. It was like an octopus.
Oh! You're thinking of the movie Sphere.
No, I'm not thinking of Sphere. God damn it. I know what Sphere is.
With Samuel L. Jackson, where he's having the dreams.
No, not that one. There was this old movie from the 90s But there was this early plot point in the movie where they got these guns, right? They pulled out these guns, and it was like these are these special military grade where they can make bullets out of nothing, and it justified their unlimited ammo for the entire movie.
I don't remember this movie. I wish I did.
I will send it to you because it had like Famke Jackson in it, and it was like, why is she in this movie? But it was like, it was such a weird ass movie. But at the end of the movie, they the two survivors floated on shore of this island, and it was essentially Monster Island from like the King Kong stuff. So it was like, it was such a weird, batshit crazy 90s film, but they had that plot point very early so they could justify having unlimited ammo. And I always remember saying that, like, I think it was even in Thank You for Smoking, where they said, we have to have the main character smoke a cigarette, but they're like, but in a pure oxygen environment, it would kill him. He's like, but what if we add like a sentence where he says, thank God we invented this thing so that we can do this, right? I'm ready for some of that stuff at this point. Like, Marvel has painted themselves into these weird corners. And I think now the way they're justifying the Falcon being able to fight the super soldiers is that his suit is made of vibranium. It's made from Wakanda. He's got powers because of the suit. And that's how they're going to justify it, because he's just a dude. Just a dude in Falcon wings who's now supposed to be Captain America. But
I mean, maybe you write him into Armor Wars to just justify that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's so many things now that Marvel really needs to figure the hell out, because we're at a point now where audiences are getting kind of annoyed with the lack of direction, because there is a lack of direction. I mean, but at the same time, at least with the other movies and the other phases, the direction was being at least shown to you in some capacity. So we'll see what happens.
There's just a bunch of kids. I'm thinking, like, at the end of Thor Love and Thunder, like, what is the takeaway of that movie? There's a little girl Thor. Like, I don't know. There's just a ton of kids.
The big takeaway from that movie is not letting Taika Waititi do any more Thor movies. Stop it.
He's done. He doesn't want to make them.
And he shouldn't, because I like what he does with other movies. But I don't like what he did with Marvel.
Well, that's a really interesting, it's funny, as we're looking at this list and not once mentioned on here is Thor. And Thor has been a real big staple. I feel like they've made a lot of choices with him. Where would you like to see the next Thor movie? Or do you feel like we need to, once Thor finds out about Loki, he's going to go visit him, right? Like, isn't that kind of what we're building up to?
I mean, you kind of think so, right? But on that same note, I mean, I have such a love-hate relationship with the MCU Thor, because I love the first movie. The first Thor is my favorite Thor movie. And my second favorite Thor movie is Infinity War. Not the others, because it seems like if you get the right director to have Thor taken seriously again, he's a great character. But when you put Thor up with the other Avengers movies or Thor, whatever the hell that second one, Dark World, or Thor Ragnarok, or Thor Love and Thunder, or Thor in every other, Fat Thor from Endgame, I couldn't stand every depiction of Thor except for the first Thor and Infinity War. And I feel like they need to figure out what the hell they want to do with the character, because what they've been doing is the most bipolar depiction of a single character in the entire MCU. One episode, he's serious and he's learning from his mistakes and he's having character growth. The next, he is sitting on a couch playing Fortnite with some friends. It's like, who is this character? Because it's not being done correctly.
I when you put it like that, I definitely feel that you could be utilizing him better. And I also wonder if, maybe you solidify and bring Thor back into Magic World and maybe have him be a part of all of that. There's a way to get him back over there away from space and robots, but I don't know. It would have to be a big effort.
Yeah.
You need something for Thor to punch.
Yeah, you do. And I don't know. I feel like one of my biggest, it's such a silly issue to have, but one of the things that made Thor such a unique character in the comics was having the Donald Blake alternate persona, and they never did that. I mean, Marvel
Never.
Phase 1 was anti-secret identities, and the first secret identity that existed was Spider-Man's, which is insane because most of the Marvel comics are these heroes having their alter egos. So,
do you maybe think you introduce it and the next movie we see Thor, it would be a comedy, Taylor, but we see him as like a guy at a grocery store and he can't use his Thor powers, even though the Stifler's mom is being really funny. She's like really annoying right now.
No, he lost me at Thor in comedy.
Okay.
I don't want it anymore. I mean, some of the funniest stuff about Thor in those movies shouldn't be the jokes, or it should be the situational humor.
Right.
And that was always the funny stuff. Like I don't know. I didn't like the childish humor that Taika brought to those movies, like the devil's anus, things like that. I was like, wow, that was just really on the nose. You want kids to laugh, but this movie's also not for kids because of the other stuff you put in here.
Well, I'm thinking about the screaming goats right now. I'm thinking about the Hercules tease at the end of that movie. Like, okay, so is the next Thor movie going to be Thor versus Hercules? Is that like, I mean, I guess, right? Like, that's what was set up.
Yeah, but do we even want it at this point?
No. But I mean, it was the tease.
It was the tease.
So okay. What's the countdown to Rebel Moon?
It's on Thursday.
This Thursday. Are you going to watch it day of?
Yeah, it's like 7:00. Why wouldn't I watch it?
Okay, 7 p.m. I'm writing it down, Taylor. I'll watch it too. Are you emotionally prepared for all the fights you're going to have online about this movie?
Probably. I mean, it's such a funny thing because the hardcore Snyder fans think that I hate Snyder now. And ironically, I don't, and I love the movies, and I'm probably going to watch Rebel Moon and love it. But if I say that I love the movie on Twitter, someone's going to say, "I thought you hated Snyder, you bitch," and we're going to get that. So it's like maybe I should just
Snyder's
like Snyder.
taking his lumps right now. John Oliver just had a joke about him. There was a joke in the Barbie movie. He's getting all the lumps right now.
Yeah. But we'll see what happens. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to enjoy it. And then I'm going to say my piece about it. And if I say anything critical, I'm going to get people accusing me of being a hater and whatever. But the reality is fans need to stop seeing everything from subjective views and realize that there can be an objective viewing of things. And that's just how it is. But
lastly, before we jump Marvel side,
yeah.
Do you think that we see whatever this direction is going to be in Deadpool 3?
Deadpool 3 is a multiverse story, and Deadpool 3 is going to help bridge the multiverse stories even further.
Okay.
So that's just a lot of it. I mean, Deadpool is going to be multiverse hopping, looking for friends.
Okay.
So on that note, before we wrap up, I did tease at the very beginning we were going to talk about some DC stuff, and I guess we forgot to. We got so wrapped up in talking about what the hell's going on with Marvel.
Okay.
So some of the bigger recaps. Earlier this week, John Roca of the Hot Mic podcast implied that Madeline Klein, the blonde girl from Glass Onion and The Outer Banks, is currently in the running for Supergirl or a different role in the DCU. This actress from Glass Onion. Yeah. So obviously we know that with the more recent leaks and rumors that Supergirl is supposed to have a brief cameo in Superman Legacy, and literally just a cameo to set up her existence so that the next movie, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, is going to make sense. Other big bit was Hollywood Reporter dropped news that Palm, I always say her name wrong, Clementif, the gal who played Mantis in Guardians of the Galaxy, was joining the cast of Superman Legacy, and then so was Miriam Shore, another actress. Previously, Miriam Shore was revealed by Scoopers to be playing a member of the head of the CIA or something, and she was going to have a minor role in Superman Legacy. Within minutes, maybe like 30 seconds of the article going out on the Hollywood Reporter on social media. James Gunn went to Threads and said, despite Palm being one of my favorite actors to work with, this is 100% not true. Not only is Palm not in the movie, but no one has ever discussed with her. No one has ever even discussed her being in the movie, nor do I have any idea what role she would play. And then someone asked, is it true that Miriam Shore has been cast as the head of CIA? She's like, no, it's not. I'd like to find a place for Miriam, but right now, no.
It's funny that James Gunn is having to fight the same weird battles of whatever leaks out of Warner Brothers for some reason. There's somebody who feels that they have good leaks out of them, and they're consistently wrong.
Yeah, which is funny to me. I feel like what James is allowing this to happen, and I think he's doing this on purpose, because people are saying, "Oh, why is James Gunn taking the time to debunk things?" I think he's doing this on purpose because he's going out of his way to show people which sources cannot be viable. Because he said before that the only people who know what's actually going on in DC is him and Peter Safran.
Right.
And yet you have all these leaks coming out and saying, oh, he's doing this, he's doing this, he's doing this. And every time some of these previously credible sources is now saying these things, they're getting debunked left and right.
I would assume he is a director that likes to work with casts. Everybody from the old Guardians movie, if they're not under a Disney contract, expect them to pop up in his new universe.
And somewhere. Yeah, 100%.
Period.
But that even said, a lot of people accused him of like nepotism and stuff, saying that he's only working with the same people. But I also argue that Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, Zack Snyder, literally James Cameron, like so many of these people use the same actors and people they like to work with, because that's what a good director does. They find cast members that work well with them, and then they keep that synergy going.
Some of our favorite movie was Steven Spielberg and Tom Cruise. They were making bangers for a while. Minority Report's great.
It is a great movie. And on a different note, Matt Reeves, the fella behind the Penguin show and the Batman, James Gunn made a passing comment about someone asked him, so could you tell us if Matt is producing another Batverse project other than Batman 2, Penguin, and Arkham? And he said, right now, Matt is producing Arkham as a DCU show. So there's just those two for now in his universe. People immediately said, wait. So Arkham is DC? DCU? And he said, yes. We love Matt as a director and a producer, and he will be producing stories set both within his universe and within the DCU. And immediately the internet freaked out, saying, how can Matt Reeves abandon his Batman project to go work for the DCU? Or maybe his Batman project is a part of the DCU. But he just said he's being a producer. That doesn't mean he's leaving his stuff behind. He's just helping craft it.
He's got a really good hold on Batman right now. And I think we will see you're going to have to buff Batman up, not physically, but buff him up in a tech way to be able to deal with what is being set up in this universe. Funny enough, though, what was the rumor I saw today? Jack Reacher himself wants to play Batman?
Yeah, so I was going to get to that. With all of that, someone asked me why he would pivot his show from being an Arkham show in the Elseworlds Batman universe to the DCU, and I said, how many villains has Batman actually got in his universe? And they're like, I'm like, an unnamed Joker, Riddler, and Penguin. How many people are going to pop up in an Arkham show set in that universe without breaking the mythos of that universe? I think Matt Reeves very quickly realized if he wants to make a viable show set in the DC, in the Batman, a viable Batman Arkham show,
it's got to be main universe.
It's got to be further on, because either A, Batman's going to have a massive time jump between Batman 1 and Batman Part 2, and he's going to have taken out dozens of villains and put them all away, or B, the best place you can do is have a Batman who's 15, 20 years into his career, put all these bitches away, and now tell their story that way.
I think that's the movie people want to see. I don't think they want to see Ben Affleck go, I've been doing this for 20 years, Alfred. That way doesn't work anymore. I want to see him put Scarecrow, what's the puppet guy? What's the puppet guy? What is his name?
The ventriloquist.
Thank you. You know what? In every Batman animated thing, we see all of those treasures. We see the giant coin. We see the dinosaur. Why don't we have a movie of him in 3 acts? We see him get all of those set pieces for the garage. Like,
now, okay, so let me give me my pitch real fast. So Matt Reeves is working on the Arkham show. Use the Arkham show as a springboard of explaining all of these villains that had interactions with Batman. And then when you get the Batman movie, The Brave and the Bold, and he's got his Robin, he's got his Nightwing, and now Damian shows up, have that Batcave and have those references. Where, like, in the Arkham show, episode 1 be about how Batman took down the Penguin, and Penguin's in the show, and he's just saying, "Oh, the Bat got me this way." And have just kind of like, you don't have to have the same actor, just have from the Penguin's perspective of a menacing figure taking his ass down. And you can use a stuntman, you can use whatever you want, have him in the shadows all you want, but use the Arkham show as the massive backstory show and allow all of that stuff to be, all the groundwork, all the heavy lifting to be done on that show, so that he can then, when you jump into The Brave and the Bold and you see Batman's Batcave in his trophy room, you can catch all those references.
He even took my big playing card, that meanie. And then it's like, great, now we get the payoff.
Yeah, and then you just see Batman in his cave sitting on his computer and a giant-ass penny and a giant-ass playing card in the background. Yeah. And you're like, oh, Batman just steals from crime scenes. All right, this is the Batman that we have now. He's taking evidence from the cops and he's keeping shit.
I mean, he found it. It's fine. He's the world's greatest detective.
I'm pretty sure like even James Gordon is like, dude, stop taking evidence. I know that we put him away, but these things are expensive. The museum wants their T-Rex back. He's like, nope, it's a weapon. I'm keeping it. So like things like that. Like I just want, I want them to do that. Like my perfect viewing of how DC should have always operated is tell the big tentpole stories, tell the big stories that you need to have on the film. And if there's a TV show that somehow tells backstory, that's where the TV show should be. Yeah. Don't make it required viewing, but make it a payoff to allow fans to, if they did both, there's the payoff.
Right. Okay. Well, let's see what happens. And we'll be joining everyone later for our Hollywood special, our Christmas of viewing of the new Zack Snyder film, where we will tell you our honest opinions about it.
Yeah, so on that note, so we did have some other things that were planned before we wrapped up the season. Didn't work out. Michael and I will probably record later this week, maybe Friday or Saturday, depending on our schedules work out, and we will just talk about Rebel Moon there. And then we're taking a couple weeks off, and then we'll probably return around January 9th because
wonderful.
I want my Christmas week, we want our New Year's week, and then I have my birthday in that in between time, and I don't want to spend my birthday on the podcast.
I hear you.
We're gonna jump a little bit, but with the starting of season 3, we also are changing the overall view, like format of how the show looks. The show itself is going to stay the same, but there will be a visual change so that fans can at least know that there is a new season here. So every season we're gonna
put a 3 in the monocle in the background. There'll just be 3s at all of the monocles.
Yeah, so there'll just be 3s everywhere. It'll just be like Riddler scratchings, just 3s all over the wall. But on that note, Michael, take us home.
Taking us home, our patreon.com/theculturednerd. These are the wonderful folks that send us their wonderful pieces of shekels and monies that are able to help us make you this wonderful content. Here is our list of wonderful patrons. They're all good, fine folks. Thank you so much for all of your donations. Thank you for keeping us on. Your host has been Taylor Murphy. I am your co-host, Michael Santel. Our logo is by Jose Navarro, and our intro is by Taylor Murphy and Jay Stu. If you have your cell phones, please like, comment, subscribe, do all of those things on the YouTube. Helps us give us more visibility. Question of the day: what do you want to see in the new Batman movie? What Batman trophies or trinkets would you want to see? What villains would you want to see in an Arkham show? You can
Scarecrow.
give that Scarecrow. Thank you, Taylor.
Scarecrow.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see all you kids and cats soon.
All right, we'll see you later this week as we talk about Rebel Moon, and then we're done for a few weeks. So
then we're done.
All right, see you later, baby.
Bye.